Hi. What I'd like to talk with you today about is AMH, anti-mullerian hormone. What does it mean when you get an AMH test? And what does it really mean for your potential fertility? New research is showing that it doesn't really mean what you've been told. So let's take a serious look at AMH, what it is, and how it does or does not affect your ability to get pregnant. I'm going to be looking at my notes a lot because I want to make sure that what I tell you is really organized and that you get all the information that I really want you to have. So, the test of anti-mullerian hormone. Anti-mullerian hormone is secreted by the follicles in the ovaries when the follicles are growing, and eventually one of those follicles, each follicle is a sac full of fluid holding an immature egg. And so by the time you get to ovulation, one of those follicles has an egg that has matured enough to be able to ovulate. So anti-mullerian hormone is the name of the test. And these eggs are growing in the first half of your cycle. And when you're young, you may have as many as 15 to 20 follicles growing during that first half of your cycle. That's why they call it the follicular stage, because it's this part of the cycle where the follicles are growing and competing with each other. So think of it this way. As you get older, the number usually gets less. However, age is not really the main factor in this. Doctors are very caught up with age because they are very caught up with statistics. And when you start helping yourself and nurturing your own body and helping the internal environment of your body to change, your age, your chronological age, is not so important. And we'll get to that in another video. But right now, the newest research, which has sparked the start of a lot of research, follow-up research, because they want to reinforce what was found with this research, was only about 2017, I think it was October of 2017. And in the notes below, I will put the link to the research article that was published in the Journal of American Medical Association that has just kind of lit a fire under this idea. So let's look at the study. The study was a cohort study. Cohort just means group, a group of people. A cohort study of about 1,000 women of late reproductive age. Those are the words of the study. Low AMH was defined, and this is across the board. Usually low AMH is defined as less than 1.0. So anything starting with 0.01 or whatever you've been told is considered low. So what happened in the study? Well, 84% of those with low AMH conceived. And 75% with those with normal AMH, which was over 1, even as high as 4, they also conceived. So you can see that actually the people who had the low AMH conceived more than the people with high AMH. And this study was done by someone who's a very well thought of reproductive endocrinologist in New York City. Oh, actually, I think she's not in New York City. But anyway, she's a good reproductive endocrinologist. And what reproductive endocrinologists have been noticing is that over the years, this statistic of AMH does not mean too much about whether you have eggs left or not. You see, as one doctor said, you only need 1 egg. So the quality of the egg is a lot more important than the quantity of the egg. But research has also shown, and I'll discuss this in another video, that if you use Chinese fertility herbs and you do other things with it, like the fertility massage and different things, that you have a 60% better chance of getting pregnant than someone who is doing IVF. And the reason is that you're nurturing the body. you're nurturing the body. As you're getting older, it's not really so much a matter of your age. It's a matter of the internal environment. So let's go a little bit further. Let me tell you the story of Zora, and then I'll come back to this AMH and tell you my take, my kind of metaphorical take on what's happening in your body as things change and the number of follicles that show up increases. So Zora was 44 when she got pregnant, nourishing her body with the deep nutrition of the Radiant Wonder herbal formulas and doing the Radiant Wonder fertility plan. It's important to combine the both. Let me tell you her story. So she was not in a relationship at 42, and she was very concerned about her fertility, and she went to see a very well thought of clinic in New York City, and they told her that her AMH was very low and her FSH was high. So her AMH was, let's see, 0.01, and her FSH was 95. So what they said is that really, if she had a partner, it would mean multiple efforts with IVF, if she could even create enough eggs to do that. And so they were also suggesting that she might consider egg donor, and that she's also on the brink of menopause. So you see, since Western medicine's protocol to handle this is IVF, that's why they told her there would be multiple procedures needed. You see, Western medicine is very good at what they do if they have somebody comes in whose body is prepared to do it. That means someone generally who has a lot of energy, who has a very good internal environment, good sexual fluids, good cervical mucus, a regular cycle. That kind of person has a much better chance of succeeding with IVF. But when you're 40, you've been living for a while, and that's taken its toll on the inside. So it takes time for your body to renew and replenish. But no Western medical doctor will ever tell you, well, you and your husband take off 5 or 6 months, you change your diet, you take some Chinese fertility herbs, you do some things, and for 3 months, he makes a few lifestyle changes, eats a lot of fruits and vegetables to protect his sperm, and then come back and let's test you again in 6 months. Likely, you'd probably get pregnant within those 6 months. But anyway, they don't say that to you because they don't really understand the value of what you can do for yourself, because it's not part of their protocol. It's not because they have absolutely no interest, but it's not something that they understand. It's not something that they have medical journals to support. So this was her story. So she decided that she would start freezing eggs. So every month she would take the drugs, like the injectables, to help the body push out more follicles. So the body would retrieve more follicles. And then they would give her estradiol to bring down her FSH. And then they'd scoop up whatever they could and freeze those eggs. Well, she kept doing this month after month after month. And her body was getting a little worn down. And finally, the body just rebelled and said, no matter how much estradiol you give me, I am not bringing this FSH down. So they told her, we're so sorry, but you're actually in full-blown menopause. You've only made one follicle this cycle, even though we couldn't bring things down, we were still going through with it. You only have one follicle that made it to an egg, and the egg looks terrible. It's kind of old and fractured. And so we just have to tell you, I'm so sorry, but there's nothing else we can do for you. You'll have to come back at some point. Maybe use some of your frozen eggs or use egg donor. So she was devastated, and she contacted us. She'd already been using our herbs, trying to help her body recover, because she'd been doing this so long, recover from the fatigue it was feeling from all of these procedures. But I remember thinking, oh my God, she just ran her body into the ground, and now she's going to come to Radiant Wonder and think that there's going to be some really quick miracle that's going to turn everything around. Well, actually, for her, it was pretty quick. So let me finish the story. So she's 42. She was asked to leave this clinic, and in the meantime, she had met this incredibly wonderful guy. And they fell madly in love. And he was the CEO of a major bank. And they were in love. And so now they not only had the relationship they'd always wanted, they had the dream together, they wanted a family, and they had the monetary means between the two of them to do whatever it took if they could do something with Western medicine. So at this point, she had been taking our herbs for about 4 or 5 months. And she'd been doing the whole fertility plan at the same time. And they went in to see the doctor. So she and her honey were talking to the doctor, and the doctor and the CEO started a long conversation about Zora. And they had the file there, and they talked about how she wasn't able to, the body wasn't retrieving any eggs, how many drugs her body had to take to even do anything, and that the egg that had shown up was just poor quality all the way around. And so Zora started to cry because, well, I think I would have too. And the doctor, probably wanting her to be quiet, because this is the same doctor she'd been working with, she said, Zora, let's do this. We'll do an ultrasound and see what's going on in there. So they went in to do an ultrasound, and the doctor knew very well what she was going to see because this had been her patient for a year or so. And so she did the ultrasound. And when she did the ultrasound, her jaw dropped. And Zora said for the rest of her life, she'll never forget that moment when the doctor's jaw dropped. Oh, and the doctor said, oh, maybe we can do something. So what did the doctor see? The doctor saw 17 follicles dancing around in her competing for ovulation. 17. That's a very young body. So her chronological age was 43. Her biological age was obviously a lot younger because she had been working to change the internal environment inside. So let me see, there's something else here. I want to make sure. It's noting. Okay. Okay, so why is your AMH low and how can you change it? So AMH, I kind of look at it this way. A lot of times when the doctor says is going to do an AMH test, he or she will say to you, let's see how many eggs you have left. Now, as a layperson, you might think that you're going to the grocery store and counting the eggs. But obviously that's not true. Obviously, as you get to know a little more, you realize the name of the test is anti-mullerian hormone. And hormone is obviously not a physical egg. So the doctor can't see inside your body to see how many eggs you have left. Your eggs are actually on primordial eggs. They're primordial cells, like your husband's sperm, primordial cells, like stem cells, primordial cells. These are cells in the body that are never damaged in where they are. They're perfectly pure, beautiful cells. And even when you're in full menopause, you'll have probably about 1,000 of these follicles left. They're not really eggs at that point. They are these little follicles, or actually the cells that are going to become the follicles that will become the eggs. So what happens is the body just retrieves these eggs, these follicles, these cells to become follicles. The body retrieves them. They're deep down inside, and the body pulls them up for that cycle. Now, your body is very interested in having you get pregnant, but it's also interested in being healthy and strong and giving you the best chance to have a beautiful child. So when the body moves to pull up the follicles, if it feels that the internal environment that the follicles are going to be growing in is not conducive to creating good eggs, it's not going to pull up very many. 2 or 3, maybe 1, couple, enough that you might have a chance of making that one egg that you need, but not a multiple, not a lot of them coming up. So when the follicles are dancing inside your ovaries, it's like there's a party in there. And when there are a lot of follicles, they emit a lot of this anti-mullerian hormone. It's like the music coming out of the ovaries, and that is what the doctor is measuring. So when you change the internal environment and things are better inside for nurturing good and beautiful high quality eggs, what happens is your body starts to retrieve more eggs. So you can see why logically when the doctor sees that you have not retrieved eggs, his logical conclusion is there are not eggs to retrieve, because he doesn't consider the idea that you might be able to renew and replenish and get better. Doctors are very good, Western medicine is very, very good at making a snapshot of where you are right now. They can really see where you are right now. But what they don't take into consideration, because it's not really something they see very often, is that you may not be a snapshot. You may be a moving picture. And if you can help that moving picture to get better, then things start to change, and he notices them. When the doctor saw all of those eggs, those follicles dancing around in Zora, she never asked her why or what she'd done or anything, because the doctor just considers it something anecdotal. If it doesn't come through the double-blind studies and is published in the medical journals that the doctor reads, the doctor is not really going to pay much attention to it. But so you're never going to go see a doctor and have the doctor say, why don't you just take 5 or 6 months off, you and your husband, change your diet, do something, whether it's the Radiant Wonder Plan or something else, and you just come back and let's just see if you make these dietary and lifestyle changes, if things can change for you. And you'll have a better chance of using our reproductive endocrinology. No, they don't think of you as a moving picture. So that is what AMH is, and how you change it. This is why I encouraged you in the last video to listen to the video where Zarifa and Ahmed and I are discussing the mindset, because we're so focused on the hormones, and the hormones are keeping us from getting pregnant. But in fact, you are the only one that can change that internal environment. You're the only one that can make these changes. And when you do make the changes, yes, eventually the hormones will change. But I tell you, they don't change real fast. I've had, just like Zarifa, she went back, she was feeling fabulous. She was having a cycle again after not having it for years. She just was fantastic. But what did the doctor say? That everything still looked bad, that her AMH was still low and her FSH was still kind of high. And yet a month later, she was pregnant. So those hormones, AMH and FSH, are not keeping you from getting pregnant. And you only need, as one doctor said, in fact, it was the doctor who ran that study that's produced in Journal of American Medical Association. I saw her quoted someplace else, and she said, you know, the truth is you only need one good egg. So why are we so focused on having the woman have to have so many follicles? You only need one good egg. And your only real measure of whether you're fertile or not is whether you get pregnant. So anyway, so with what I've seen over the years is that normally when your hormones are out of balance and you're tired, you're drained, you have a lot of stress either in your life now or that you've been through, and then as you're able to repair and renew and replenish from that, and you start feeling better, you start feeling happier for no good reason. You're not pregnant, but you're feeling happy. When you start to see those changes, more energy, better, calmer energy. And people will say, well, what does that have to do with being pregnant? It has everything in the world with being pregnant. Because when you do the techniques we teach you and take the herbs that we have, you start to feel those changes. And when you feel those changes, when you feel good, your hormones are working better. Your whole body is working better. And the symptoms you see start to change. Well, you will see more cervical mucus and more sexual fluids, because these herbs are the nutrition that starts to bring that back. And you'll also see, if you have hot flashes, there'll be less hot flashes. Eventually your cycle will come back. But you're going to see symptoms and results that you can feel and that you can see. This is really important, because when changing your mindset, you have to change the mindset from thinking about the hormones running your life, and thinking about you making the changes. In my mind, I have absolutely no proof of this, but over 20 years, I have seen again and again with women that as these things happen, as they begin to see more energy and they begin to sleep better at night, which really helps you to heal faster, and they begin to see their cycle begins to balance, that what begins to happen is that if they're working, some of these people have worked with reproductive endocrinologists, they'll see more eggs and they'll see better quality eggs. And when I talk about the next research article that I think is really interesting, you can find it actually if you want to jump ahead on the frequently asked questions on the fertility page of our website. There's a question that says, is there any research to back up that taking these herbs is a good path toward pregnancy? And you can read that. But one of the things that happens again and again is that women see more eggs and better quality eggs. I've seen this happen, obviously must have happened for me, because the doctors thought I had nothing to give, nothing to offer. And 9 months later, I was pregnant. And I hadn't seen a doctor, hadn't taken a test, hadn't seen an acupuncturist. All I was doing was my original version of the Radiant Wonder Fertility Plan. So AMH should no longer be in your mind something to be terrified of, something to be so fearful of. And they consider FSH the same way. FSH is a little bit different because FSH is a bit of a monitor of your stress levels. And as you know, stress can affect FSH. The doctor may say no, but you will have a lot of stress and you will go in and your FSH will go up. And when your stress levels are high, cortisol is high. And one of the things we are always focused on with our program is helping cortisol become lower. Because when cortisol becomes lower, all of your reproductive hormones begin to work the way they're supposed to work. So I hope that this has been helpful. I think that this study is fantastic. And the reproductive endocrinologist who started it had been observing in the clinics that time and time again, women that she had told had no eggs left, virtually no eggs left, and were not going to be a good candidate for any of the IVF procedures, ended up getting pregnant. You see, what they're determining is that AMH is actually a really good measure of how many drugs your body can tolerate with their procedures. So when they see low AMH and high FSH, that combination, they know that you're not going to help the statistics for their clinic. You're going to have to work a while to be able to succeed. I'll tell you one short little story. There is a woman, I think she went to Peru to do an IVF. And she was having a lot of trouble getting down there because she had to set up things with the doctors, and she'd set all of that up. There was the money, getting it all together. She certainly couldn't afford it here. So it took her 6 months to be able to go down there. And during that 6 months, she did the Radiant Wonder Fertility Herbs and the Radiant Wonder Plan. And she has a testimonial, a success story on our site. And one of the things that she said in there was, I am so glad that I didn't have the money. I'm so glad that I couldn't, with a fear that I had of not having enough time to get pregnant, that I couldn't fulfill that and try IVF earlier. Because I could tell in that 6 months how much more fertile my body was, how much stronger I was. And so that's the kind of body, that's the kind of health that when it goes into something like an IVF, has way increased odds for success. So I thought that was really insightful of her to share that with everyone, where she was glad that life had gotten in the way and didn't let her do exactly what she wanted to do, and ended up giving her exactly what she wanted to have, a beautiful, healthy baby girl. So thank you. I know this is a little bit long, but I think it's important to try to cover these things and to do them in detail and to do them in a way that you can feel that there is science behind it. So take care, have a great day, and I wish you all good health.